Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. It is a hot day here in coastal North Carolina, and the garden's growing. But as we inch closer and closer to fall, it's not even summer yet, and you're talking about fall? That's right, because that's how you got to do it in the garden. We're going to start this process. How can we possibly start talking about fall when you've got your garden going and you're just now getting things to really take off? I mean, what's the deal with that? And it seems kind of confusing, but that's the way this is. So over the winter, I did a lot of talking about getting started early, getting your garden in time. A lot of people followed the path and had some success. And it's always a learning process, but fall is no different whatsoever. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think that it is crucial to get started in fall as early as possible, and it all starts now. We have a lot of time left and so this is exactly why I wanted to start it now. But you can see we've got a majority of our beds have stuff growing in them, stuff are maturing, stuff is empty. We have some things that need to be harvested. Yeah. I still haven't gotten my garlic. Today is going to be the day though. Let's see how our grocery garlic did. Look at that. So we'll have to go through, and I'm going to harvest this garlic here. And by the end of the video, I'll show you how this garlic, which is my third year of doing garlic from the grocery store, has worked. It's from the same original cloves that I've done. So this will be the third harvest off of it. So I'll show you that. I'm not going to harvest it on video. But I want to talk about planning for your fall garden and why it's so crucial to do it now, and why our garden is in the state that it's in, and how we can use this to our advantage. I'll use a couple things to kick off the start of my thinking process for fall and planning. One would be my potato harvest, my onion harvest, and then finally it's going to be my garlic harvest. These three things really put me into the mode of like, okay, because as you look, we now have empty beds, so we have to figure out what we want to do with them. And I mean, I'm not saying you've got to leave them empty and wait for fall, because it's like, well, when do we plant for fall? Well, we'll get to that in future videos, of course. But the thought process is we have space available, so what can we put in these spaces that will end up being a quicker grower and that we can empty it out for, in time to get into fall. And so my planting here begins, something fell on me, around August. So about the middle of August, we start planting in the ground. But we got to start seeds like real soon. So, I mean, if you wait until, let's say, if you wait until the calendar says fall, you're late. You're not going to have a harvest. You're not really going to grow well, and you're going to struggle. And so, for instance, this year with my cabbages, my plan is to get them going so I can try and get a harvest before the new year. So usually what I do is I put them in the garden. They basically overwinter and they just chill out right here. And then we come back and we harvest them after the first of the year, usually about February or March. Well, I want to defeat that. I want to have some that do that, but I also want to have some that come out around Christmas time. So the idea is you got to start them from seed. You got to get them going nice and strong. You got to transplant them, and you got to get them growing in time. The kicker is you're running out of daylight. Point you at the sun because I don't want to blast your eyes or my camera, but from just about this point on, we got about another week or two until the summer solstice. You're going to start losing daylight, and that becomes a real issue, and that becomes an issue here. So what we need to do is we need to plan for this daylight, and we need to say, okay, certain things in the spring take longer or shorter amounts of time, but in the fall, we're going to add about 2 weeks to that growing season, if we're lucky. For instance, in my garden, this bed right here is almost ungrowable in the fall. Anything we put in that back bed, we know is going to basically stay stagnant until the end of the year. You can't see it, but I see another squash vine borer moth flying around. It is 11:30. I try to get out here so I can honestly say good morning to everybody. And there is a squash vine borer moth laying eggs. What do you do? So we have all this under control and we're thinking about it. And then we say, well, what can we put here? Well, one thing I can do in this bed, or I'm going to do in this bed, is I'm going to put a round of corn in. It'll be about 90 days. We're going to put it in this week. And then after that 90 days, so that would be August 30th, then this would be emptied. So works out pretty good. We still are working on what beds we're going to let rest over the winter and what beds we're going to work over the winter. These two beds are new, so we're probably going to work them for the winter. I'm almost 90% sure we're going to let this tomato bed over here rest. We may actually end up letting this one rest, and then we're going to work these two pretty hard. And then this one over here, we're probably going to work hard too. So you can see, hopefully the plan is next year, these will rest in the winter time. And then the next year, these would rest in the winter time. You got to make this decision now. And when you plant, this is how we plant. So we know what's going to come out. For instance, this tomato bed is going to be emptied right around middle to end of July. It should be pretty empty. This bed right here, the squash bed, probably the way it's looking around July, it's going to kind of fizzle out. So we have an opportunity to plant something else in this bed if we want or not. But knowing that we're going to let them rest, we're going to go ahead and plant as much as we can in them. But then this bed, for instance, which we're going to cover crop, I'm waiting on my seeds to get here. They need, we will cover crop it now and then we'll come back and plant it. And so that's just giving it time to recharge the soil. This corn bed right here, which is finally getting up and going, we're gonna play this one by ear and see what we want to do. We're not sold one way or another if we're going to replant it afterwards, let it take a break. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but just I have 90 days really to figure it out. Well, probably at this point about 75 days to figure it out. You need to have a plan in place, and so periodically from henceforth I'm going to be talking more and more and more about this. And if you're starting seeds for fall and you don't know when to start them or anything like that, there's an email address below. You can shoot me an email. We can get you a seed starting chart for your area made. They cost $10. You send them to me on Sandy Bottom Homestead on Venmo, and then I will make it for you. Just give me your zip code, or you can email me and we can talk about it there, whatever. But that way we can get you going. This is the perfect time to start doing it. So start getting your seeds together, start making your plans, because we're going to get everything in order. And in conjunction with this, this is why we also just put out our fall seeds on our shop that we do through our podcast. It's on Etsy. So there should be a link below for that if you need seeds or anything like that. But that's why we waited until now, because this marks the time in which we really need to start thinking about starting seeds for fall. If you're not quite ready, if you're more south of me, you should probably be waiting. If you're farther north of me, you should probably start getting very serious about starting seeds. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time to do it, and it's a delicate balance. But when you get that seed started and you get it in the ground in time, and when I say in time, what I'm going to go ahead and say is early enough, you're going to be surprised how fast these things will grow. Just like that, that marks the beginning of getting ready for fall. So off of grocery store garlic, bought the organic, nothing fancy. You can see we've got some really good heads. We got some that are small, but that was, whatever. But yeah, this is really good. That's why we won't sell garlic in our seed shop, because you just don't need to do it. This is the third year and we're just getting garlic, and we get enough every year to eat, and basically we don't run out. As a matter of fact, we end up throwing it out. But you can see that now this bed is completely empty other than the weeds. So we've got our work cut out for us to get it weeded, get it seeded, get it watered, get it amended, and then we can move on. But this is all part of it. So the other thing to think about now is, since we're going to plant our crops earlier, because basically having a fall garden is cheating the system. That's how I like to look at it, especially like in the South, stuff like that, where we can be 85 degrees and then the next day freeze, get our first frost. So you kind of got to cheat the system a little bit, and that's where we're going to start adding shade. We're going to be doing a video about that, and I've done videos in the past, and the reason why I'm doing another one is because I'm tweaking my design all the time. But it's time to start thinking about what crops you're going to plant, where you're going to plant them, what needs shade, what doesn't need shade, what needs to be started early, what doesn't need to be started early, what needs to be direct sowed. All of that stuff needs to start to be thought about. And then think about how you're going to add shade. So I'm not concerned about adding shade right now, but I will be in the very near future. And then we're going to bring that to you as soon as we do it. As soon as I start adding shade, I'll bring it to you guys. So this kicks off the beginning of the fall season. I want you guys to get started in time, get it going, get everything moving in the right direction so you can get it in the ground on time. You can get a couple fertilizations going on so you can get that produce that you want, that you deserve to get. That's what we want to do. So stay tuned, subscribe for it, because it's going to be just like winter. When I was going over, or not just like it, but the same idea is where we're going to be talking about planting earlier, and you're going to see me planting earlier, and I hope you follow suit, because it's going to work out in your favor. But it's not always easy, but the end result is absolutely amazing.